If you're trying to decide whether a Toyota hybrid or a Honda hybrid is the safer bet for the next 10 years and 200,000 miles, here's the whole answer in one breath. On the hardware that actually moves the car, Toyota has the longer, clean record. Honda owns the single worst documented case of early hybrid failure in the American market. And the real gap between them today is narrower than anybody selling you either one wants to say out loud. That's the video. Everything after this is me showing you the paperwork. And I mean paperwork, not vibes, not Toyota is bulletproof. Not the guy at the parts counter who had a cousin with a Prius. Recall campaigns with federal numbers on them, a settlement a judge signed, warranty documents where the manufacturers quietly tell you exactly how much confidence they have in their own hardware, if you know how to read the mileage figures. I've had both of these systems apart on the bench and on the ground, and I'll tell you the thing that surprised me most the first time. One of these two designs has no clutches, no bands, no torque converter, and no gears that change. The other one has a clutch that slams the gas engine straight to the wheels at highway speed and calls itself a transmission when it isn't one. Which of those sounds more durable to you? Hold that thought, because your instinct is about to be half right and half wrong, and the half that's wrong is going to cost somebody money. Three things I want you watching for. When I get to what actually breaks on the Toyota side, there's one component that Toyota has now recalled in 3 separate waves across roughly a decade, and the second wave alone covered more than 260,000 cars. When I get to Honda, I'm going to show you a recall from 2024 that covered exactly 98 vehicles, and why that tiny number tells you more about modern quality control than any glossy reliability score does. And at the end, when I get to what one of these companies handed owners as a remedy after their expensive hybrid batteries died early, I want you to do the arithmetic with me out loud, because it's genuinely one of the cheapest things I've ever seen a major manufacturer get away with. Let's start with why these two systems are not the same animal at all. Most people think a hybrid is a hybrid: gas engine, electric motor, big battery, some computers deciding who does what. And at the 10,000 foot level, sure, but the thing that determines whether a hybrid drivetrain is still healthy at 180,000 miles, isn't the battery. It's what sits between the engine and the wheels. That's the part that carries load every second the car is moving, and that's the part that either has wearing surfaces in it or doesn't. Here's Toyota's answer, and it's the most elegant piece of production engineering of the last 30 years. At the heart of the Toyota system is the power split device, a planetary gear set where the ring gear connects to the wheels, the sun gear to one motor generator, and the planet carrier to the engine. An arrangement that gives you continuously variable power distribution with no friction-based CVT mechanism, because the speed of that first motor generator sets the effective ratio. That one compact gear set replaces the traditional gearbox, the torque converter, and the clutches entirely. Set the jargon down for a second. Think about a bicycle where instead of shifting gears, you had a second rider whose only job was to spin a small crank faster or slower. And by doing that, they changed how hard you had to push. Nothing engages. Nothing lets go. Nothing rubs. The whole ratio change happens because an electric motor speeds up or slows down. There are no belts, no pulleys, no friction bands. It's a meshed planetary unit regulated electronically through the two motor generators, which means very few wear components in the whole assembly. The generator also starts the engine, so there's no separate starter motor either. Now Honda's modern system takes a completely different route to the same destination. In the low and mid-speed range, where the motor has the advantage, it works like a series hybrid and drives the car with the electric motor. At highway cruise, where the engine wins, it works like a parallel hybrid and connects the engine more or less directly to the tires. Honda's own engineering description is blunt about the appeal. The system needs no power dividing mechanism and no transmission, which avoids the friction losses those create. That's a real argument, by the way, and I don't want to straw man it. Honda's driveline has fewer parts in the power path than Toyota's does. But it does have one thing Toyota's doesn't. During high-speed cruising, the system enters engine drive mode, directly connecting the engine output shaft to the wheels through a clutch, a fixed ratio equivalent to a top gear. One clutch, engaging and disengaging thousands of times over the life of the car. Toyota has zero of those. That's the fundamental difference, and everything downstream flows from it. So on architecture alone, you call it for Toyota and go home. Except that's not how reliability actually works in the field, and I want to be honest with you about that before I go any further. Architecture tells you where the risk is. It doesn't tell you what went wrong on the assembly line in a particular month in a particular plant. That's where the real failures live, and both of these companies have some. By the way, if you're trying to keep your car running for as long as possible without wasting money at the repair shop, I put together a guide called the 500K Mile Car Care Bible. It shows you the 101 habits that protect your car, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot the mechanic upsells that quietly drain your wallet. If you want it, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or grab it from the first pinned comment below. Toyota first, because it's the one nobody expects. The weak point in a Toyota hybrid was never the gears. It was the inverter, specifically a thing called the intelligent power module, the block of high power transistors that converts battery direct current into the alternating current the motors run on and back again. Repeated hard load driving, like heavy acceleration from a stop, produced high thermal stress in certain transistors inside that module, which could allow a voltage buildup beyond what the software and circuits were designed for, triggering a reduced power failsafe or a complete loss of propulsion while driving. Not a rough idle, not a warning light you get to think about over the weekend. The car quits in traffic. The first recall in 2014 covered roughly 800,000 Prius hybrids in the United States from the 2010 through 2014 model years. A second campaign followed in October 2018, covering 2010 to 2014 Prius and 2012 to 2014 Prius vehicles for the same shutdown risk, and it swept back in cars that had already been through the earlier fix. Then a third in mid-2020, catching 2013 to 2015 Prius, and 2014 to 2017 Prius cars that had been left out because they shipped with a different software version. 266,637 vehicles in total. There's the first loop paid, and I want you to notice what the remedy was because it matters later. Dealers performed a software update for the hybrid system, and if a car had already suffered an inverter failure with the specific fault codes, the inverter assembly was repaired or replaced before the update went in. Free of charge, hardware included where hardware had failed. Remember that shape, software for the population, hardware for the ones already hurt. We're going to compare it to something. That's not the only Toyota story, and the other one is the one that empties wallets today. Third generation Prius, 2010 through 2015, with a 1.8 liter engine. That engine has a well-documented susceptibility to head gasket failure, shared with the Prius VI and the Lexus CT200H, with failures typically landing between about 130 and 200,000 miles, and a few reported far earlier. One California shop that has been servicing these cars since 2007 went back through 8,791 repair orders on third-gen Prius and CT200H vehicles and found 314, where a technician's notes explicitly mention the head gasket. Here's my first admission of the day, and it's an important one. Ask 3 good hybrid shops what causes that failure, and you'll get an argument. The common explanation is the exhaust gas recirculation circuit clogging with carbon, creating uneven combustion temperatures that cook the gasket. The engine leans hard on that system for efficiency and emissions, and the cooler sits at the crossroads of the exhaust, the intake, and the cooling system, which is exactly why when it clogs, the damage spreads, sounds airtight. But another specialist shop with just as many of these cars on the list says flatly that their experience doesn't support it. If clogging were the root cause, they'd expect a clog system on nearly every failed gasket car. And they don't see that between us. And when the system does clog badly, it usually sets its own code first. I lean toward the cautious version. Clean the circuit anyway, because a clogged one causes misfires and rough running regardless. But don't let anybody sell you a cleaning as a guarantee against a gasket. That's my read. I've seen enough of these to have an opinion and not enough to have proof. And I'd rather tell you that than pretend. And Toyota's problems aren't all in the past tense either. In December 2025, Toyota opened a safety recall on certain 2025 and 2026 Camry and 2026 Corolla Cross hybrids, roughly 55,000 vehicles, because a bolt inside the inverter can come loose, which could lead to a loss of motive power or a fire while the vehicle is on. 34 incidents reported and 15 warranty claims triggered it. Brand new cars, the most refined hybrid drivetrain on earth, undone by a fastener. That's the honest Toyota picture. Now let's go to Honda, and Honda's story splits cleanly into two halves. One genuinely bad, one genuinely good. The bad half is integrated motor assist. The system Honda ran from 1999 into the mid-2010s. It used a single electric motor sitting between the engine and the transmission. A mild hybrid designed to work only alongside the gas engine without the ability to move the car on electricity alone. In the Insight, that motor was 35.5 millimeters thick. Call it 1.33 inches. Honda's own pitch was that because the motor only assisted and never provided primary motive power, it could be made smaller and lighter, and so could the battery. Read that sentence again because it's the whole problem in one line. A small pack doing a big job. Honda identified the underlying cause as chronic undercharging. Frequent stop and go driving, especially with the air conditioning running in warm weather, could stop the pack from holding a healthy state of charge, and it deteriorated early. How early? One owner in the public record reports the packs failing in her car at 45,000 and 53,000 miles, and in her sister's identical car at 50 and 75,000. Those are not high mileage numbers. Those are lease return numbers. Still with me? Good, because the second half of the Honda story is where it gets interesting, and it's the part most people arguing about this online have never actually looked at. Honda threw the mild hybrid concept away and built a genuinely modern two-motor system, and the thing has largely worked. The first 3 generations ran the 2 motors in line with each other. The 4th generation, arriving with the 2023 CR-V and Accord, moved to a side-by-side arrangement that added a direct drive gear set and a new low-speed lockup clutch, which is what finally let a Honda hybrid tow 1,000 pounds. And the independent data on those cars is genuinely strong. J.D. Power rates the CR-V Hybrid 84 out of 100 for quality and reliability, and IC Cars puts it at 13.8 years, or better than 169,000 miles before major issues, with roughly a 30% chance of reaching 200,000. The RAV4 Hybrid's comparable JD Power figure is 80 out of 100, with an IC Cars estimate of 13.4 years and about 163,000 miles. Yes, you read that right. On those 2 particular scorecards, the Honda is ahead of the Toyota. I'm not going to bury that just because it complicates my story. If you came here for a clean beating, the numbers don't hand you one. Quick housekeeping while we're at the turn of the road. There's a whole section still to come on what these repairs actually cost when you're the one paying. And then the part where I show you what one of these companies offered people whose batteries died. If you're getting something out of this, subscribe. That's the only thing I'll ask you for today. And the reason to stay for that last part is a number. The remedy came out to somewhere around $100 to $200 against a repair that runs into the thousands. So let's talk about what breaks on the modern Honda side, and let's do it fairly. The EHEV era has had its own troubles, and they are almost all electrical or manufacturing rather than mechanical. Back in 2015, Honda recalled 6,786 Accord hybrids from 2014 and 2015 because the hybrid battery cell voltage sensor didn't have enough electrical noise toughness and could misread interference from the inverter and motor circuits, dropping the car into a fail-safe electric mode. In that state, the car could travel about 2 miles before the battery flattened, and then it would stall. Small campaign, ugly failure mode. More recently, certain 2023 CR-V hybrid and Accord hybrid vehicles were recalled because the electronic transmission may have been improperly manufactured, resulting in a loss of drive power, and the remedy was replacement of the whole ECVT unit. Not a reflash, the whole assembly out and gone. That's an expensive campaign for a manufacturer to run. And to Honda's credit, they ran it. Then there's the one I flagged at the top. Certain 2023 CR-V hybrids were recalled because high-voltage battery modules may have been built incorrectly, so a terminal or bus bar could break and spark, with a risk of fire and a possible loss of drive power. That campaign covered 98 vehicles. 98! Somebody traced a metallurgical problem to a specific build window and pulled exactly those cars, and only those cars, off the road for a module replacement. That's what functioning quality control looks like in 2024, and it's the reason raw recall counts are a garbage way to compare brands. One campaign can be 100 cars, the next one 750,000, which brings us to the largest recent one. In late 2025, Honda recalled approximately 256,000 model year 2023 through 2025 Accord hybrids because due to improper software programming by a supplier, the integrated control module could reset while the vehicle was being driven, causing a loss of power. Dealers reprogrammed the module with corrected software. A supplier's code, 250,000 cars, and a car that can shut down in the left lane. That's a serious one, and it's fresh. Now, here's a comparison the brochures will never make for. You read the warranties. Toyota moved its hybrid battery coverage from 8 years and 100,000 miles to 10 years from first use or 150,000 miles, beginning with the 2020 model year, while the other high voltage components stayed at 8 years and 100,000. Honda's published position on the high voltage battery is that gradual capacity loss is expected and not covered, while greater than normal degradation is covered for 8 years or 100,000 miles, as determined by an authorized Honda dealer. And the federal floor underneath all of this requires every automaker to cover the main propulsion battery for at least 8 years or 100,000 miles. So Toyota went 50% beyond the legal minimum on the most expensive part of the car nationwide, and Honda mostly sits on it. That's not an accusation. It's an actuarial decision made by people with access to failure data you and I will never see. And it's the single most useful signal in this entire comparison, which is exactly the right moment to talk about who's coming for your money. Go back to those failing IMA packs. Honda knew the failures were coming through the warranty system, the pattern was visible, and the company acted. Here's what acting looked like. Honda released software updates for the battery control module that changed the charging logic to protect the pack, and a class action alleged that those same updates masked the battery's true state of health and reduced performance. The lawsuit specifically claimed a July 2010 software update degraded fuel economy and performance in 2006, 2007, and 2008 Civic hybrids. Sit with that for a second. You bought a car on a fuel economy number. The hardware underneath it wasn't lasting, and the fix that arrived at the dealership was a change to the software that decides how hard your car is allowed to work its own battery. Honda denied the allegations throughout, and I'll say that plainly rather than let it get lost. But look at what came next, because the settlement is a matter of public record, and nobody has to take my word for any of it. A San Diego federal judge granted final approval in March 2012, resolving a 2010 class action over advertised fuel economy that owners said couldn't be achieved in normal driving. The ruling covered roughly 200,000 Civic hybrids from model years 2003 to 2009, with 2006 to 2008 owners getting more because of the additional battery claims. Now, your share, $100 or $200 if you were in the battery subclass. Rebate certificates of no less than $500 and up to $1,500, good toward the purchase of another new Honda or Acura, and an extension of the original IMA battery warranty by 12,000 miles or 12 months, whichever came first. Do the arithmetic with me. Your hybrid battery fails. Best case under that deal, you get $200 in cash, a coupon that's only worth anything if you hand this same company $30,000 for another car and 1 extra year of the warranty that just expired on you. The plaintiff's attorneys were awarded more than $8 million. That's the move, and it has a name in every trade I've ever worked in. It's the patch, not a repair, a gesture priced by an accountant aimed at closing a file, and you can spot it every time by one test. Does the remedy address the thing that failed, or does it address the company's exposure to the thing that failed? A software change that manages the symptom is not a new battery. 12 months on a car you've owned for 6 years is not coverage. It's a number chosen because it was cheap. The coupon isn't compensation at all. It's marketing paid for out of the settlement budget. And I want to be precise about who I'm indicting, because it's not Honda as some cackling villain. It's a specific decision made by specific people that the cheapest defensible response was the correct one. That's the sentence somebody wrote. Compare it to how the Toyota inverter campaigns were handled. Software for everyone and a replaced inverter assembly for the cars that had already failed. Same era. Same kind of problem, 2 completely different answers to the question of who eats the cost. You know that sentence now. Next time a manufacturer or dealer offers you a reflash for something that's clearly wearing out, you'll hear it for exactly what it is. Let me pull back for a minute, because there's something underneath all of this that isn't really about hybrids. The skill nobody teaches you is judgment about evidence, not knowledge, evidence. Everyone in this argument has a number. The dealer has a JD Power Score. The forum guy has his cousin's Prius. The reliability blog has a lifespan estimate generated from resale listings. All of it looks like proof, and almost none of it is. What actually tells you something is boring stuff. What a manufacturer chose to warranty and for how long, what a company paid to fix versus what it paid to settle, what the shop with 9,000 repair orders found when they went back through their own files. That's a skill you can build, and it transfers to everything you'll ever buy. A roof, a water heater, a mower, a house. Learn to ask who paid, and learn to notice when the answer to a hardware problem arrives as a line of code. 10 minutes of reading a warranty document has saved more people more money than every brand loyalty argument ever conducted on the internet. Right. Here's your recap, and here's the procedure I'd actually run. The systems. Toyota's Power Path has no clutch, no torque converter, and no bands. The ratio changes electrically through a planetary set, and that is the single strongest durability argument in the segment. Honda's modern system runs on electricity most of the time and mechanically clutches the engine to the wheels at cruise, which is efficient and clever and has one more wearing element than Toyota's does. The histories. Toyota's known weak spots are the inverter power module on 2010 through 2017, Prius and Prius drivetrain, and the head gasket on the 2010 through 2015 1.8-liter cars in the range where those cars are being sold used right now. Honda's known weak spot is the entire integrated motor assist era, which you should treat as a separate, older, worse product and not as evidence about anything Honda builds today, the costs, because they decide everything. A Prius battery at a Toyota dealership in 2026 typically runs from about $3,500 to over $5,000 installed. A remanufactured pack from a reputable independent runs roughly $1,500 to $2,500 installed, and Honda CR-V and Accord hybrid packs sit in a similar range through those same independent channels. That Riemann market is the single biggest change in hybrid ownership economics in 20 years. And it's why the battery will bankrupt you is now mostly a myth repeated by people who last checked in 2011. Now, the procedure, buying a used hybrid of either brand, do these in order. 1. Run the VIN through the federal recall lookup before you drive it and count the open campaigns. Not the closed ones, the open ones. That's free and it takes 90 seconds. 2. On any Toyota with the 1.8 engine, start it stone cold in front of the seller and listen to the first 15 seconds. A rough idle or misfire on a cold start that clears within 10 or 15 seconds is the most important early warning sign there is. Then pull the coolant reservoir cap and look at the level against the mark. 3, on any Honda, find out which system it has. If it's got IMA in the paperwork, price a replacement pack into your offer before you go any further, because you are buying a car with a known clock in it. 4, get a state of health readout on the high voltage pack from someone with the right scan tool, not a guess based on the dash display. 5, compare the Riemann battery price against the difference in asking price between this car and the next one. If the gap is smaller than the pack, walk. If it's bigger, you've just found leverage. Do the first 2 tonight if there's a car sitting in your driveway. Cold started in the morning, count to 15, then check the coolant. By the end of that, you'll know more about your own car's actual condition than the last 3 shops that looked at it told you. So, which one has the least reliable hybrid system? Honda does, but the answer has a date on it. Judged across the whole history, it's Honda's integrated motor assist, and it isn't close, and no amount of arguing changes a settlement with a judge's signature on it. Judged on what's rolling off the line this year, I don't think anybody can honestly call it yet, because Honda's 4th generation system simply hasn't had enough years on the road to prove itself the way Toyota's has since 1997. Anybody telling you otherwise is guessing with confidence. Now, the people who are going to hate this, CR-V hybrid owners with 140,000 trouble-free miles, and 2nd gen Insight owners who never had a single problem and are already typing. Good. Come and argue, but bring the receipts. Model year, mileage, what failed, what it cost, and who paid. Vague brand loyalty in the comments is worth nothing to the next person reading. A repair order is worth a lot. And if you've owned both a Prius and an Accord hybrid, or a Civic hybrid and a RRA V4. You're the person I most want to hear from, because you've run the experiment the rest of us are only theorizing about. I read the replies on these, all of them, and the good ones end up shaping what I go and dig into next. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing, because there's a thread here I deliberately didn't pull. There's a component on both of these cars that fails quietly, costs almost nothing to replace, and takes out expensive hardware when it's ignored. And I keep running into it in the shop notes for both brands. I haven't finished chasing that one down yet. When I do, it'll be here. Check your coolant, listen to that cold start, and don't ever accept a software update as the answer to a hardware problem.